we are going to bring to the stage Congressman Correa and Bergman. And so we will switch to that part. Thank you, Mike, for working with us today.
Oh, I gotta get
We're going to flip through our papers while we get to... Thank you both for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. Mike Viqueira, pleasure to see you, Congressman.
Viqueira, Lou Correa, good to meet you.
Pleasure, thank you.
I'm Jack.
Hi, Jack.
Nice to meet you.
Former Marine Lieutenant General.
I was a commercial pilot too, and never say hi, Jack, in an airport to a pilot. Okay?
Something tells me that's not the first time you've told that joke.
You might get that right.
Thank you. Please have a seat. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I know that both of you are very involved in veterans issues. Congressman, because you've served, and Congressman, because I know you've had a lifelong interest in this issue. You represent Orange County and Anaheim, California, is that correct?
Central Orange County, California, home to the largest number of veterans in the United States, and proud of it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Congressman, your district?
I have half the state of Michigan, all of the Upper Peninsula, and the upper third of Lower Michigan. So about, to be exact, 48.1% of the landmass, and we have more trees than anything.
Well, and all the trees are the right height, I hear, in Michigan.
They are perfect.
What a presidential candidate once said.
They are perfect.
Well, that's great. The UP in that area of Michigan, I know, is a really hot destination for tourists right now. I understand it's very beautiful.
Actually, it's beautiful 9 months of the year. And spring is not a fun time because the snow is gone, it's slushy, the trees haven't come back to life yet, but it is a winter, summer, and especially fall wonderland.
Thank you.
I represent Disneyland, Anaheim. 12 months out of the year,
perfect weather.
Tourism, come by and enjoy.
Yeah, we'll send all the people from the UP there, and somewhere between beginning of March and the end of May. How's that?
All right. Well, that's great. All right. We've got geographic opposites here. That's fine. Congressman, let's start with the issue of mental health, and it is a serious issue. And tell me, what resources must be accessible to veterans and their families to address the psychological impacts of military service? Congressman Correa.
Whatever they need. You think about our veterans. We ask them to go off to far away places to fight for freedom. Our veterans don't ask, they just follow orders. We train them to be the best in the world, but they see things that no human being should see. They lose friends like nobody should lose. And then we ask them to come back to the United States and essentially turn it all off like nothing happened. In my opinion, whatever our veterans need when it comes to medical or mental health, we need to give it to them. And the days of thinking about these invisible wounds as something that maybe don't exist or that are made up are gone. We've got to make sure we take care of our veterans. The suicide rate, the challenges they have in terms of coming back and dealing with their families are well documented and well known. So whatever the veterans need, but most importantly, what we have to do is listen. When I was in California, I chaired the Veterans Affairs Committee in the state legislature for about a decade. And the most important thing I did was to listen. Go to town halls, meet with veterans, and listen. Don't talk so much, just listen to them.
Congressman Bergman?
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, Lou stated it exactly. And then let's talk about the delivery of the health care, whether it be in an urban, suburban, rural, or remote environment that you have. It's one thing to have care, it's another thing to have access to the care. And that's where the challenge is, and that's why Congressman Correa and I think we work very well together because we cover all of that urban, suburban, rural, remote. But to use technology today, if there was one good thing that came out of COVID, it was the advancement of telehealth in the delivery of care, especially to veterans, when it came to advancing from care in the community to getting right, face-to-face with that veteran, even though it was now via some kind of Zoom or whatever it happens to be. So the veterans were the last adopters because they wanted to see their physician or provider face-to-face, but when that couldn't happen because of the limitations of travel, They were the first adopters of telehealth, and now they're touting it. We can sit at home with a cup of coffee, although some of them, quite honestly, said, I'd like to get out of the house for a day. You know, whatever, you could read into that however you would like, but the idea is deliver the care, and most importantly, when our role in Congress here is provide the environment where the VA, in this case, or it could be Department of Defense, have the therapists trained with the right techniques to help the veterans here in the 21st century.
The Veterans Benefit Administration paid out $150 billion in compensation and benefits to 1.5 million veterans and survivors. That's a 39% increase from the previous year. Is the current system working? It would appear, judging from that statistic, that it is.
Short answer, yes, and let's give a shout out where it's deserved. Secretary McDonough, who's the Veterans Administration Secretary, has really made a commitment to putting the money in the right place so it gets the results. Where the process is still a little bit backlogged or log jammed. By the way, you know what log jam stands for? You can visualize what a log jam is. Well, in this case, it's levels of government creating the log. So as we pull some of those unnecessary logs out to get the veterans' appeals and the veterans' claim process moving forward, that's all in the right direction. We want to get it right, and we want to do it as quickly as possible.
Okay.
And federal government as well as other levels of government are notorious for stalling on delivering those benefits that you should earn or have earned and are entitled to. I'll give you an example. Social Security disability benefits. It takes you forever to get those benefits. You essentially have to hire a lawyer to represent you, and that stalls the system for 2 or 3 years. There's no need for that. And I think the veterans are in the same situation, which is you make it really difficult. The system makes it difficult for them to get their benefits. And that's got to change. And I think over the last decade, you've seen that change. And as the general has said, the system is working, but it's got to get better. There's no reason for veterans to call my office and say, can you reschedule that appointment that I just got canceled, and the new appointment date is 3 months out. I can't wait 3 months. That shouldn't happen, and they shouldn't have to go through their Congress member to get it done.
If I could add just one thing before we move
Please.
off that. Give the veterans the choice as to where they go for their appeals claims. If they want to go through a VSO, great. If they want to go through a company that provides that. But it's incumbent upon the Veterans Administration to hold all people who do veterans claims accountable for, especially shout out the good results and also take care of the bad actors in the marketplace.
Well, I've learned over the last few days as I've prepared to moderate this conference that that's something of a controversial issue among veterans group. You, too, have sponsored the PLUS Act. Why is it needed?
Free market. If you're a veteran and you're not happy with your claims process, with your appeal process, that you're not getting the results, as Congressman Correa just said, you shouldn't have to be calling your representative's office to get that. You should have the choice to go where you want. And if you want to pay a little bit of money, that's your choice. But it's on the Veterans Administration to accredit and to hold accountable anybody who is in that marketplace.
Listen to what Jack just said. Free market, I would use the words individual choice. Give the veterans the opportunity to make their own decisions, where they want to go and how they want to deal with their affairs. What are, of course, is this legislation, but also think about it in other ways, which is the one I worked on in California forever was cannabis, okay? Now we're looking at mushrooms for treatment of veterans' ailments. I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to do this for the veterans. The veterans are coming to us and saying, these are the things we want done for our health. So it's up to us as members of Congress to respond to what they want and make sure these services are delivered in a safe, secure manner with guardrails to make sure they're protected. But give them the choice to essentially look for their services, their medications, the treatments that they're interested in having.
Okay, I just want to follow up very quickly because after all, I am a journalist. The knock from some of the veteran service organizations is that the groups that do aid for a fee, the veterans in getting benefits, they call them claim sharks. The inference is they're predatory. They're taking advantage of veterans who are in need. What's your response to that?
They really need to actually take a look at the services that the companies provide and not paint everyone with the same brush. That's going back to my comment about the Veterans Administration's responsibility to accredit and hold accountable bad actors. I mean, any marketplace does that. I mean, if you are trying to deliver a product and deceive a customer, there has to be some agency that has oversight. In this case, it's the Veterans Administration in the accreditation process.
And I'm glad to hear there's people questioning the process, kicking the tires, so to speak, because what we're doing is essentially putting guardrails on the system to make sure that those abuses are minimized or don't take place. So we're going from this, today's situation to a place where we actually put safety systems there to make sure that those abuses are minimized, not eliminated.
The issue of psychedelics, Congressman Correa, you brought it up a moment ago. I'm old enough to remember when it was absolutely taboo to talk about even taking mushrooms recreationally. Obviously, we're not talking about recreational use, or
Correct.
What we used to call ecstasy, which I guess is the fundamental ingredient or the street name for some other therapies that are being promoted right now. Why is it important, and what is the evidence, as you understand it, to point to the fact that these can be helpful to veterans who are suffering from mental illness?
I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but again, I listen. And when you hear Navy SEALs, Marines coming to you and saying, if it wasn't for this treatment, I wouldn't be alive. The spouse is saying, if it wasn't for that treatment, I would have lost my marriage, my spouse, God knows where we would be. You hear those stories over and over again. And then the saddest part of this is they've said to us, it's illegal to get these treatments in the United States, so I have to travel to Mexico, to Costa Rica to get treated. That's shameful. When a veteran tells you, this is what works for me, some of them are saying 80% success from one treatment, and I can't get it in the United States. What we're looking for is not to legalize it, but rather to study it, one step at a time. Again, what we want to do is have the VA look at it, study it to make sure that this is something the veterans will help the veterans. And number two, again, putting guardrails here. Because the studies I've heard, the medication, the treatments I've heard is, you don't take this stuff and just walk away. You've got to have a trained therapist that actually works with you to make sure that there are no negative complications from the treatment.
Right, Congressman?
Yeah, it's two things here. And number one, when Lou and I started the Good Path Caucus a year ago, PATH was psychedelic advancing therapies. I added GOOD, which stands for get off opioid dependency, okay? Because while the treatment may be a little different for everyone, the results that we've seen and heard from veterans that has literally changed their life. And oh, by the way, we've got ketamine, which is FDA approved. We've got MDMA moving towards FDA approval. So we are, again, trying to create that environment where the scientific community can do the research necessary to provide the therapies necessary and needed for our veterans. And if it means taking a look at something different to help you get off the dependency of opioids, that's the right path.
Yeah,
and think about this. The 1960s were probably the last time that we had major breakthroughs in treating mental health. We're looking at something very similar right now, something revolutionary, and we have to make sure we do the research and make sure that we understand what is going on out there and not having the laws from the 1960s, 1970s that are actually a barrier to moving in this direction.
You mentioned that the VA needs to study the issue, but there are a significant number of studies, and you already expressed frustration that veterans have to go overseas to get this treatment, which they say helps them. Why do we need another study?
Can I jump in on
Please,
that on the
yeah.
front
Go
end?
ahead.
The VA is always very cautious, as are other government bureaucracies and scientific communities. But it's what we're trying to do from our role as members of Congress is to get the VA to the point where they see it's okay to study this, that it is okay to do that, and they don't want to do the wrong thing for the wrong reason. We're kind of building their confidence through the funding we've requested and directing them to research this. I was up at the Bronx VA a year ago, Dr. Yehuda, who testified before our panel yesterday, and she's been doing research so far. Most of that research has been privately funded. Well, the bottom line is the private funding is going to go away at some point, so now we as the federal government need to take the look at our agencies and move them forward. And they're not starting down a path that hasn't already been done before. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to build the confidence and give them the direction they need.
I see.
If this treatment is half as promising as we think it will be, and actually, we want to make sure that the VA knows what they're treating and how to treat, because they will essentially be responsible primarily for treating our veterans.
I see.
And one of the other piece of that is that now the VA, again, in the testimony yesterday, you're going to have a new kind of therapist, a therapist that has different tools, and you're creating a series of jobs that are going to be using different kind of therapies to help the people in need. And if it works for veterans, it's probably going to work for the general public.
We just have a couple of minutes left, so I'll ask you a sort of a general question and I'll ask you to sort of tee off. Congressman Correa, I'll start with you. What more can Congress, the Pentagon, the VA, and the White House do to improve the lives of those who have served their country?
Keep doing what we're doing. You know, over my political career, I've seen the issue of veterans up and down. We love veterans, we don't love veterans.
Yeah.
We have to always be reminded that veterans are the reason we have our freedom. Veterans have made this country great. Let's not forget that, and let's keep on that track.
In the simplest form, keep the veterans services as local as possible.
Yes.
And keep those providing them, whether it's a VSO, whether it's what other entity, keep those people trained to what's going on today that they should be aware of, whether it's claims application, whether it's introduction to care in the community and providing a pathway, but keep it local because the veterans live locally somewhere, whatever that locality is, keep it local.
All right. Congressman Bergman, Congressman Correa, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Great conversation. Appreciate it. Okay, hijack. Got it.